Electoral democracy is defined as a type of government that lets its citizens influence the workings of a nation. Done right, it can be a strong force in the development of a nation to prosperity and cohesion. On the other hand, poor enforcement of its principles can lead to the destruction of an entire nation. There are 6 pillars that fully define electoral democracy: transparency, fairness, secrecy, privacy, participation, and adaptability. The proper functioning of an electoral system requires addressing any and all concerns that may arise in each of these categories. The implementation of technology in electoral systems is a stepping stone towards the betterment of these technologies. In this video, we will discuss the benefit of technology on these 5 pillars of democracy. The first pillar is transparency. Transparency in a democracy is achieved by keeping government meetings open to the press and the public, having budgets publicly available for review by anyone, and having laws and decisions open to discussion. Technology makes it easy for the public to have access to news, statistics, polls, campaign promises, campaign finances, and more. This helps the public stay well informed and make the right decision when they exercise their right to vote. Electronic voting machines, also known as EVMs, are designed with 2 units, the control unit and the balloting unit. With an EVM, instead of issuing a ballot paper, the polling officer presses the ballot button, which enables the voter to cast their vote. The vote cast through EVMs are less prone to human error compared to the paper ballots. Being a standalone machine without any network connectivity, it is extremely hard to interfere with an EVM's program and alter the results. An EVM usually prints each ballot receipt to have a paper trail. This allows the casted votes to be more transparent than the traditional paper ballots. India, the world's largest democracy with a population of more than 1 billion, adopted the use of EVMs in 2004. Before the switch, it took up to 4 days to count the votes manually. EVMs can provide results the very next day in comparison. The votes are also more centralized, and it's easier to track the voting results as they happen. There's also a lower chance of ballots being lost in transportation. In this way, EVMs help improve the transparency and efficiency of a democratic nation. The second pillar that we're going to discuss is fairness. There are 2 main improvements to fairness in electoral democracy brought about by technology. These are reduction in ballot frauds and providing a standardized counting mechanism. The use of technology has greatly reduced ballot fraud, especially in developing nations such as India and Kenya. According to an article written by Debnath Sisir from the Indian School of Business, the last several general elections in India have been tarnished by allegations of fraud, which lead to mass protests and outbreaks of violence, dividing the nation and halting economic growth. In some instances, entire ballot boxes filled with votes were stolen while they were being transported from the polling station to the parliament for counting. To address this issue, these countries switched to using EVMs to make sure all elections are fair and credible. An officer at each polling station transmits real-time voter numbers electronically through a secure network. Furthermore, biometric voter registration allows Kenya's elections to virtually eliminate duplicate voters and ghost voters, who are fabricated individuals for the purpose of fraudulently casting additional votes. Another common issue faced by democratic nations is not having consistent voting methods across and even within states and provinces. This became an especially serious issue during the 2000 U.S. presidential race, where the then Democratic Vice President Al Gore ran against Republican Texas Governor George W. Bush. The election race was very close, and it came down to the state of Florida to determine the election winner. Florida, being a swing state, had a really narrow margin between the votes for the 2 candidates. Florida election code mandated a statewide recount for a result this close. Thus, the recount began the day after the election. After the machine recount, the Gore campaign requested a manual recount in 4 counties, which was initially granted. The recount, however, revealed a big problem. There were a variety of different balloting methods being used across the state. In some counties, votes were counted using a hole punch, but if the hole wasn't punched properly, the machine would not count the vote. According to an article published by Cornell University of Law School, in Palm Beach County alone, 9,000 ballots were found to be discarded, either because they were not properly punched or because multiple candidates were voted for in the same ticket. Eventually, the Supreme Court intervened to stop the recount because the recount violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which says that given the variety of balloting systems, it was impossible to count all the votes by the same standards, and hence the recount should stop immediately. The final outcome of the presidential election was not known for over a month after election night, due to the arduous process of recounting Florida's ballots. This is one of the main problems that exist with non-standard manual voting systems. If the entire state of Florida used a common method of voting like EVMs or e-voting, any recount could have been done much faster without the violation of the Equal Protection Clause. Our next pillar is secrecy and privacy. Technology improves the privacy of individuals of a democratic nation. Breakthroughs in cybersecurity have had tremendous improvements in ensuring the privacy of voters. The 21st century gave rise to advanced cybersecurity techniques such as security fragmentation, security layering, encryption, device identity assurance, multi-key combinations, and opposing party auditing. According to a research done by Smartmatic, the probability of an electronic system being hacked was calculated to be 10 to the minus 19. To put this in perspective, the probability of a meteor hitting the Earth and causing an extinction-level event in the next few years is approximately 10 to the minus 7. Privacy is an important aspect in this era, especially with the rise of social media platforms and other services that have access to a user's personal information. While there have been cases of hackers gaining undocumented access to personal information from online voting systems in the past, it was only due to improper engineering of voting systems. Modern improvements have addressed these concerns in multiple ways. Cybernetica, a leading e-voting service provider, uses end-to-end encryption, and the prevalence of biometric IDs with multi-layer passcodes have made forging a voter profile stored on a unique electronic ID much harder than writing a stolen voter ID or social security number onto a form. A good example of a successful implementation of this is in Estonia, a country that has integrated online voting into its electoral system. This country has gone 10 years with 0 breaches or miscounts. This brings us to our final pillar, participation. One of the biggest advantages of the adoption of information technology has been the increase in participation of citizens in the electoral process. Healthy democracies have always strove for increasing citizen participation for voting in their countries. Modern technology is helping achieve that. Some states in the US have adopted e-voting, which is a web-based portal to enable absent voters to cast their votes remotely. For example, the state of Missouri offers electronic ballot return for military voters serving in a hostile zone, thereby increasing voter turnout. The voter turnout in the Canadian federal election increased from 58.8% in 2008 to 61.4% in 2011, and finally to 68.5% in 2015. And in this same time period, the percentage of Canadians using the internet increased from 83% in 2008 to 90.9% in 2013. Thus, there's a direct correlation between the voter turnout rate and the percentage of internet users. According to the 2011 Canadian Election Survey, 49.1% of voters agree that Canadians should have the option to vote over the internet in federal elections. This compares to only 39.4% who disagree. 58.8% said that they would be likely to vote over the internet if they could do so, while 37.5% said that they would be unlikely to do so. Furthermore, 57% of non-voters said that they would have voted if it had been possible for them to do so over the internet. Therefore, it is clear that a switch to e-voting will increase voter turnout. Another way technology influences participation is through providing information to voters. Low information voters, also known as misinformation voters, are people who may vote yet are generally poorly informed about political issues. These voters tend to be swing voters and can often determine the outcome of an election due to a large portion of eligible voters not participating in elections. This is why it's especially important to prevent campaigns swaying their votes through the use of attack ads and slander. With the technology available today, voters can be more informed than ever without bias. It is very easy to dispute a false claim and shut it down before it causes much harm. An example of this can be seen in the summer of 2012 during the US presidential race between the reigning Democrat Barack Obama and his GOP challenger Mitt Romney. The Obama campaign ran a TV ad accusing Romney to be involved in Bain Capital's outsourcing of American jobs. However, nonprofit website factcheck.org ruled this ad as false, saying there was no evidence to support the claim that Romney, while he was still running Bain Capital, shipped American jobs overseas. While there is no question that outsourcing occurred, the announcement by the company came more than a year after Romney left in 1999 to head the Salt Lake City organizing committee for the 2002 Winter Olympics. Traditional means of voting has proven to have many deficiencies, which can and must be solved using the technology available to us in this era. The use of technology to reduce fraud and increase the efficiency of the system can help restore voters' confidence in their own democratic electoral process, leading to more social cohesion. With great strides in the security of EVMs and e-voting, the voters can feel confident about their information being kept private and safe. In this age, access to information has greatly reduced voter misinformation. The use of the internet has made it easy to keep track of campaign promises and social issues, so the voter can truly vote for who they want, and government representatives who genuinely want to help the people are more likely to be elected for office.